I'm back with Greg Kelly, anchor of Greg Kelly Reports on Newsmax TV, host of the Greg Kelly Show on WABC, and the Greg Kelly Podcast. The new book, Justice for All. Greg, talk a little bit about why you decided to write this book and what its main theme is.
Well, a year ago, I stopped riding the subway in New York City. I couldn't go down there anymore. It was too dangerous. City, as you mentioned, as we talked about, falling apart. And what really boggled my mind was that corporate America signed up for the Black Lives Matter movement so thoughtlessly, overnight, throwing millions of dollars, putting their logo up, not having the faintest idea of what they're signing up for. The socialist ideology, the anti-family ideology, the crazy trans stuff, all of it. And if you go deeper, those who support it, and now academics, liberal academics who are invited to speak at colleges and are consulting DEI programs, believe in abolishing the police department, believe in abolishing prisons. It's insanity. So I felt like there needed to be a rebuttal, a correction, and I feel like cops who are under fire needed to hear from me to some degree, and from all of us, more importantly, that we're still on their side. Their job has always been tough. Now it's been made politically toxic. So it's a critique of Black Lives Matter and a robust defense of law enforcement, with a big exception. I revisit January 6th. And this is another thing that I think needed to be said, and it has not been said adequately in an organized fashion. And I think, in the book, because a lot of folks feel not comfortable criticizing police officers. They're in uniform, especially the January 6th cops, who I think were picked for their optics. You had the good old boy. You had a big, tall black guy. You had a pretty woman. You had a Dominican war hero from Iraq. The people are squeamish about taking that on. And by the way, all that's fine. But it's irrelevant. It's what they did and what they're saying. And I think it's approaching something akin to fascism. When you can't question people with guns in uniform who are not elected, that's fascism. And we're on our way there.
Well, I mean, Greg, you're saying something I think very important, because what you're saying is that as conservatives, we have this strong and correct tendency to back the cops. We recognize that society will be lawless without the cops. We need good cops. But there are also such a thing as bad cops. And I want to ask you to clarify, because do you think that the bad guys on January 6th were the Capitol Police, the Capitol Police leadership, or do you think that the strings were being pulled higher up and they were merely carrying out what other people had directed them to do, whether it's the FBI or whether it's Nancy Pelosi and her gang? Who's responsible for the events of January 6th?
Well, number one, it was a massive security failure, obviously. And after a day like that, you don't hand out gold medals. You don't invite police officers to the White House and recognize them. You don't. There were heroic cops in the aftermath of George Floyd in Minneapolis. They were not celebrated. And I understand why, given the situation. So many questions about January 6th are unanswered, but more confusingly for me, they went unasked. Nobody even asked these questions. Why did those three cops walk away 30 seconds before Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed? Why was Ashley Babbitt shot and killed? There's not a police department in the country that would say that was they talk about good and bad shootings. That was a bad shooting. No doubt about it. We saw cops waving people in. So number one, you don't celebrate that kind of performance. But yes, I do think that there's the higher ups, there's sinister forces, the FBI. Christopher Wray essentially admitted that there were FBI personnel in the crowd. And at one point, And it never occurred to me that there may have been federal law enforcement informants inside the Capitol before the protesters got there. Never occurred to me. But a Louisiana congressman asked that question of Christopher Wray. Can you tell us that there were not FBI? And he would not answer the question. And he got visibly flustered and nervous. So the Capitol Hill Police is not to be celebrated at this moment. I think it's a bad police department. And right now you have Officer Dunn in uniform with a gun telling people, newly elected members of Congress, that he's looking forward to working with them, but you better do this, this, and this right. He's tweeted this. He is a social media force now. That's crazy stuff. So I know what you mean. The rank and file, we want to support them. And obviously, yeah, I think there are about 1,800 police officers, and some of them are great, but they have a cultural systemic problem. And it's also beyond the department.
Greg, this sounds like both a needed and important book, and thank you for writing it. Guys, the book is called Justice for All, and my guest has been Greg Kelly. Greg, thank you very much.
Dinesh D'Souza, thank you very much. An honor, sir.